Thank you, Jasmine, for having me. I love doing these webinars for the Northbrook Y and providing some information for you. So today we're going to talk about running and how to stay running healthy to any age. You never know. Some people can continue running and some can't. I am a physical therapist for a really long time, and I am the owner of the Manual Touch Physical Therapy in Wheeling. We use a whole body approach of traditional and non-traditional therapies to get people back doing what they love to do. And today we're going to talk about running. So we also I have a specialty with runners analysis. My running career, I am now 63. I am no longer running, and we'll get to that. But I began running when I was older, at age 42. And I wanted to start doing some kind of cardio activity, but I didn't want to pay for a gym membership. And I wanted to be outside. So I started running a few days a week, and I built up slowly, and I really found I enjoyed it. And I run on the Des Plaines River Trail, and my then husband or son would run with me or bike with me, and I really enjoyed it. And I had a goal of running a 5K at my son's school. And once I did that, I was like, oh, I think I want to keep running. I'm really enjoying this. And then, of course, winter came and I had shin splints. So I wound up having to join a gym anyway so I could cross train. As I got over my injuries, I set a new goal to run around Meta Lake in Eagle River, Wisconsin. It is a 6.5 mile loop at a camp that we went to every summer with our kids. It was a hilly run, and I completed that. And I'm like, wow, all right, now what should I do? And I think this is about 3 years into it. And I'm like, can I do a half marathon? I walked around the house. Should I do it? Can I do it? And my then 15-year-old daughter, Jenna, said, Mom, I'll just do it with you. I think she got tired of listening to me perseverating on whether I could do it or not. So here we are doing our first half marathon in 2008. It was wonderful. It was along Lake Michigan, down in the city. We had a great time. And after that, I probably completed a bunch more half marathons and even did one marathon in Milwaukee that went terrific. My daughter did 3 halves with me, but now she is 32 and no longer runs, but her and I traveled to Italy together last year. So she's much more into looking good and working out to look good. As I went along, I had a lot of injuries as a runner due to various reasons that we're going to talk about today. And I would go to my friend, my PT friend, to help me overcome those injuries and figure out what was going on and what was wrong. And by the time I was ready to do a marathon, I adopted a run walk method and I ultimately ran the marathon where I ran 11 minutes and I walked 3 minutes and I never got injured again. So for me, that was a method that worked really well. And when I first started running, I was like, I don't want to stop. I just want to keep going. I felt like a failure if I walked or rested. A girlfriend of mine that I ran with occasionally, and she would rest occasionally. And I'm like, no, we have to keep going. And now she likes to make fun of me. You never wanted to stop before, but then you ultimately did. So for me, that really worked. During that time, I developed a health issue where I needed some medication that made my legs feel funny. And then I had developed arthritis in my big toes. So the health issue is over. I'm off all that medication, thank goodness. But I did need surgery on both big toes, so I don't run anymore. However, love working with runners. It makes me feel like I almost just as good as running myself. But when I get to work with a runner, I get to live vicariously through them. This is me finishing the Milwaukee Marathon. So today, I am going to take you through basic running mechanics and what I look for in an analysis. I'm going to give you some tips on form recommendations if need be. And what do we do when you can't run? What do you do? So first off, who are runners? Anybody who is running faster, moving faster than 4 miles per hour is a runner. It doesn't matter how slow you are. You could be a 12-minute mile. You could be a 6-minute mile. You are a runner. I think people need to not be embarrassed if they run a 12-minute mile or even slower. You're still moving. It's great. And you could see Looking in this picture, they're all ages. I'm just guessing here. This was a marathon that I went down to watch, I think Chicago. Here's a woman who maybe is in her 50s. Here's a younger woman. Here's, because of his gray hair, I'm going to assume he's in his 60s or 70s. So you never know. And we don't all look like the cross country runners that my son was on 12 years ago. All right. So these guys are running sub 6 minute miles for their 5K, but it's fine to run at our pace. Maybe I don't have that picture anymore. I had a picture of some slower runners at the tail end. You're still moving. It's okay. All right, so we're going to talk about running mechanics and what we look for. This is my son coming in. This is over 10 years ago. He's finishing the Chicago Triathlon, and you can see him sprinting. And when you look at with the naked eye, you can't pick up anything. All right. Oh, now my son is married. He's 20, he's 29. He got married 2 years ago. I like to show that off a little bit. And there's my daughter. She was the best woman. And he still does triathlons. And my daughter does marathons. So my son, God, he graduated college in 2019. And he took a couple years off of training to nurse some injuries and get used to being an adult. And I don't know, a few years afterwards, he came to me and said, Mom, can you help me get back into gear and shape so I can get back into triathlons? And he started doing triathlons at age 14, and he soon was winning his age group in every race he was in. And he went on to do some junior elite racing in high school and then collegiate club racing and was nationally ranked. So what I first did with him is I videotaped him running, and I gave him, and I did a nice PT eval on him, and I gave him some exercises to get him up and running again. And he wanted to come back to do a sprint triathlon up in Wisconsin, where he would swim a half a mile, bike 12, and run a 5K. Mostly what I did with him was really support him through the process of rehab. I'd get called, there many a night I'd get a call, oh, my knee hurts, or my hip hurts, or my ankle hurts. I don't know if I can run. I'd have to talk him off the ledge. We'd modify his training to really get him through. And he ultimately completed that race with no problem. He did not win his age group, but he was just happy that he finished and moved on. And now let me see, maybe I didn't put it in there, but that was 4 or 5 years ago. And now last year he was back in racing form, and he took second in his age group at Chicago. He was doing great. Now the poor guy got mono 2 months ago. So his triathlon racing, he's recovering. He's about ready to start training again, but season is over. Let's see, what do we got here? All right, so this is a video about why you should do a running analysis. Hi there, it's Denise, physical therapist and owner of the Manual Touch Physical Therapy. What is a running analysis, and why is it important for runners? We know that everyone's form is unique to that person, but if that's true, then why bother looking at form? Like in any sport, movement, or activity, there is an ideal or most efficient way to move. However, it is impossible to see the subtlety of running with the naked eye. So we videotape the person running either on a treadmill or on land in order to be able to look at the video in slow motion. So how do we capture this information, and what are we looking for? Videotaping begins after the person has sufficiently warmed up, and each video is usually 20 to 30 seconds long, taken from 4 different angles. Here are a few key things we look for. In the posterior view, where do the feet land in relation to the center of the body? Where are the arms in relation to the body? We also look at the hips and if one hip drops more than the other hip. The second view is also posterior, but of the feet only. Here, we are looking at the angle of the heel in relation to the ground. In the lateral view, we look at what part of the foot hits first, and where does the foot land in relation to the body. We'll look at how far the leg extends behind the body, and how much vertical movement is happening as they are running. In the anterior view, where are the feet landing? What direction are the knees facing, and what are the arms doing? This list is far from inclusive, as there are many more subtle movements to running that we look for. We then take this information and determine why there are less than ideal form issues. Is it just form related, or is there weakness or flexibility issues causing the form to be off, which, if not taken care of, could lead to injury sooner than later? Based on the video footage and a thorough physical therapy evaluation, appropriate exercises and form recommendations are made in order to optimize running form and decrease chance of injury. Happy running! Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you a video and talk about what we're looking for in the running form. There's a lot more information on slides here. So when we're done, when the video is all completed of today's webinar, I'm gonna give you my PowerPoint. And so she'll include that in an email to everybody who's on the webinar and who was ever on the sign up list along with the video. All right, so this is that, again, my son in slow motion coming into the finish line. Okay. So there are some basics that everybody should be when they're running. Even though everybody looks a little different in their form, there's some real foundational things. It's when we look at people, there is an optimal way our bodies are supposed to move. Every joint is supposed to do something based on whatever the activity is. The same thing with running. So typically we want people to look straight ahead. You want to think really tall. You can see how upright he is. You can see the elbow drive back. You can see this hip extension behind him. And now he's really sprinting. So when you're out doing your easy runs, you're not going to look like this. You'll look more like me in the next video. But you'll have this high knee as well. And you're pushing off of the back end here. And I want you to notice how he came off of his back foot and where he's going to land on his front foot. He lands, his foot landed, did hit his heel, which is fine because he went flat right away and he got over his foot immediately. So he did not overstride, he didn't reach forward. He instead, you can see where here's a nice ankle lean, and you'll see more of that as well. That's another basic that you want to make sure you have. And I'll show you later in some pictures how when people are what we call in the back seat and they don't have that ankle lean, then it causes overstriding, and that's how we get injured. But watch where he takes off from here to where he lands. See, he's in the air, that we call that the flight phase. And he's got all this nice hip extension here, okay? And you can see where his foot is, he's going to come hitting down. And that's normal for your foot to look like that in that phase. And then he hits flat, okay? And he goes and moves forward. He is what we call a gazelle. That's his form. He also has this huge, look at, he almost hits his butt here. But if you watch this dude here, he only gets to there. This is the end of a triathlon, all right? I don't know if this guy was an Olympic or a sprint race, whatever it is. They've been out there for over an hour. My son probably finished around an hour. Maybe this guy is at an hour and a half. I don't know. But it's different, all right? But he's still looking forward. He's a little bit falling forward a little bit at the hips because he's tired. But you can see the difference in where my son takes off and lands and where that other guy takes off and lands. You'll see that a little bit more. And here's me 10 plus years ago. I am a glider. I look similar to my son. I'm tall. I'm looking forward. I've got elbow drive. I have an ankle lean. I have hip extension. I have a knee, high knee. But if you watch where I take off from this foot to where I land, it is significantly shorter, if you can remember that. I didn't measure my son how far he went, but he was able to get so much power out of his tendons. That's what we want. Technically what's happening is that Achilles tendon is shrinking down and allowing you to explode. as people get older, you lose that tensile, that tension in the tendons to get that much power. And I never had the power in there, but my son did. But you can see the basics of my foundation here. You can see I land and I'm over my foot pretty well. And I have knee flexion here, not like my son. So I'm considered a glider. I've got all those foundational pieces that we look for in a runner, but we look different, right? When I used to go out running and my ex-husband would bike alongside me, he's like, "Why don't you look like that woman? It looks like a gazelle." I'm like, that was before I really studied running. And I said, I don't know, I'm different. But there's different form in it. As we age, there's different things that happen. I'm probably not a natural runner. I had a lot of biomechanical issues that I had to work through. Whereas my son is a natural runner and can run like a gazelle. And I don't know how fast he's running these days, but back when he was in high school, I think he did a 2 miler at sub 5 minutes at one point. So though people are running sub 6 minute miles are gazelles, and then people who are running a little bit faster than that can be a gazelle runner. But you can see the basics are the same. There you can see that nice ankle lean, okay? That means I'm getting over my body. I can access my glutes and my hamstrings and the tendon to push off. All right, so that was a lot of looking from the lateral view or the side view. When people come in for their analysis, I also count how many steps they do per minute. I might have I don't know if I put it in here, but what I do is in 15 seconds, I count how many times their right foot hits the ground, and then I multiply that by 8, which gives me their cadence. I don't know where I put that information in here. Anyway, ideally, we want people between 170 to 185 steps per minute. If they're much lower than 170, then you're going to look like me when I first started running. You can see how I'm in the back seat. I'm reaching really forward and I'm landing really hard on my heel. Thus, I had shin splints and it causes a braking action. So we need to increase someone's cadence. So if somebody comes in and they're around 176 to 184, I don't usually mess with it too much unless they have an injury, and then I might make some adjustments to make up for something else that's happening. Okay, that's basic running mechanics. We're looking for other things what I'm going to look for as a PT when someone comes in injured. I'm going to get into that now, but that was really a foundation of, is someone able to do those 6, 7 basic things? And so we're not going to maybe make a change in someone's form if they've got all those pieces that we talked about. But but they're injured and they're coming to see me, so there's other reasons for that. I do have an ebook on my website. Oh, I guess I forgot to put a link here for you. But if you email me, no, excuse me, if you put your name, first and last name, and your email in the chat box, I can email you links for these ebooks. Just as an FYI, on my website, The Manual Touch, I have a running portal, and in there is all the information I have about running. There's some higher quality exercise videos, particularly how to warm up, plus some other running form exercises, all the blog posts I've written, any running tips that I have. So go ahead and check that out. All right. Now, these are some of the things I'm going to look for a little bit more spot specific, and you need to see this in a video. I will see a lot of what I see in the running. I'll just see when someone's walking. And then usually my evaluation will also pick up the same pieces. So they all confirm everything. So I'm looking from the back end here and watch. Okay, right here, what I'm looking for a couple of things. This is midline. You can see where her head, down her spine, and you can see her foot crossed midline. That is an issue that I need to address because you want your feet to be underneath your body, underneath your hips. like a traffic line distance apart. That is a form change that you can work on. I'm going to look at how does their pelvis look? Does it look relatively level? It should be a little bit off, but it should not look like, oh, rats. Right here, you can see when she's on her left leg, how much her right hip drops. That tells me she has a weakness in her left butt. It's not working well. Things are not working together when her foot hits the ground. We call that neuromuscular control. So for her, if I remember, she had left knee pain, which is a result of having left hip weakness, left core weakness, probably left foot weakness. And so we have to get all that working together. That's the posterior view, which I mentioned. We're looking at feet, where they're landing, where their knees, hips, spine, arms, okay? From the anterior view, I don't see a whole lot from this, but if somebody's moving their arms across their body or they really wide, that can give me some clues onto where their weakness is. Maybe they have some balance issue as well. So we talked about some really basic form ideas that everybody can look at. If you go out and you videotape yourself running and, oh, I'm not looking straight ahead, I'm looking at the ground, or my feet are crossing over, those are things that you can work on. But I recommend you only change one thing at a time. And that's where I think my experience and seeing what your needs are, which one we decide to change first. Usually I find the crossing midline to be the easiest thing to work on. And then number two, I might work on cadence if I find those two pieces in the problem. Things to remember: look straight ahead, driving your elbows back. I have a video of an exercise for that. You want your knees straight ahead. We talked about crossing midline. Something I haven't talked about, but you can think about if everything else looks good, it's called pawing back, where you push the ground away at toe off. So if you remember my son, where he pushed off the ground and it looked like he was flying through the air about 20 feet, it's a lot of ground reaction force where he really just paws back and pushes the ground away. And that's what you want to do when you're running and walking. And so even though I didn't go as far, I still was pushing the ground away and just landing closer than he does. Oh, here's the slide on the cadence that we talked about. If you go out and you're out running and you figure out your steps and you realize you're at 165 and that's something you want to work on, don't jump to 180 right away. Just adjust 2 to 6 beats at a time slowly. Download a metronome on your watch and you can have the metronome help you with that. I think there's also a way to do that with music. You can pull up how many beats you want per minute. And I recommend only adjust 2 to 6 beats a minute at a time. If you're out running and doing it, maybe you only do that new cadence for a minute or two and then go back to not thinking about it. And then maybe 5 minutes later, do it again. And you build up until you can do it consistently throughout the whole run before you make an adjustment to increase cadence even more. Here's good ankle lean. Here's a little exercise to work on that. This is the arm driving, some exercises there. You can sit down, actually.
Elbows closer to your ribs.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted him a little bit better there. This one, you can do it in standing.
Go ahead.
You can do it on both legs. And then
That, hold it, go on your one leg, good.
you can do it on one leg, okay? So that's a nice arm exercise as well.
That, hold it.
All right, so those are a very quick introduction to how running works and what you can do about your running form. Now I want to address some special issues. So first we're going to talk about women runners. Women can have weaker hips and they can't access their core as well. And this has to do with their anatomy. Women's hips are wider and they have a bigger angle coming down to their knees. There's actually a term for that. It's called a Q angle. Men, they have narrower hips, and so their hips are over their knees more naturally. And so they can access the muscles on the outside of their hips better than women can. Men do too, but women have many more hormonal changes up and down daily, weekly, monthly. When young women go through puberty and everything is changing in hormones, I find that young women, their posture gets all thrown off because their core isn't keeping up with it and they're not strengthening their core and their hips like they need to. And so they get this postural weakness issue. If you watch a lot of young women in a cross country race, you'll see a lot of them hunched over like this because things are not working together the way they need to, and they're not strengthening the way women need to strengthen. And then, of course, as we go along in life, we eventually go through menopause, and that creates its own other set of issues. You've lost some certain hormones, and then you're into the aging process, which we're going to talk about next. Women, of course, can give birth, and we gain weight, and then we lose weight because of the child. Our hips spread, and then they come back together. Our abdominal muscles expand and elongate, and then hopefully it comes back together the way they were, but sometimes they don't, and you get this little tear in the rectus abdominis, which is the long muscle here. It's that six-pack muscle, and you get a thinning of that tissue and then the tissue muscle underneath it, and we call that a diastasis. Not all women get this, and I sometimes see this in men, particularly men who are very buff in their abdomen. They may start splitting because they're gaining muscle mass, but their tissues around it aren't ready to do that. Or when I find it in men, I will ask them, have you lost a lot of weight? And more often than not, they'll say, oh yeah, I lost 60 pounds last year. So they're kind of like they were pregnant. They spread out, and then when they lost the weight, it didn't come back together. So we have to work a lot on getting that core to work with the rest of you. And then, of course, you have pelvic floor weakness, which is the bottom of your core muscles. And I find pelvic floor weakness not only in women, but also in men. But of course, women who have given birth, that pelvic floor has been through a lot of trauma. And unfortunately, in this country, we don't recognize that this is trauma and surgery that women go through, and they don't get PT in there immediately, maybe not immediately, but shortly thereafter giving birth. And I'm pleased to read that I think it's Duke University has started a immediate postnatal PT program for women after they've given birth, so they can start retraining all this to work together. I had a woman, Gail. She came to me, she was in her 40s, 4 kids. She had plantar fasciitis. She had 2 foot fractures. When she came to me, she still had a diastasis. She also had a complaint of, as soon as I start running within 5 minutes, I feel like I have to urinate. She had this diastasis. Nobody told her about it. Nobody figured it out because nobody talked about it back then. So we worked on rehabbing her core, getting everything working together, various exercises. And by the time she was done with PT, she was able to run without having an urge to urinate during that time. So that was wonderful. I've written a lot of tips on my website for women runners in particular. However, those tips can apply to men as well. All right, so we touched on women when they go through menopause, aging. Men age as well, and the same things happen to men as they do to women. You will lose muscle mass and bone mass. It just happens as part of the natural aging process. We just have to learn how to work with that. I've recently started a Substack post called Living in a Changing Body, where I really talk about how those changes, how our mindset really needs to work with our changing body. because it doesn't mean you need to stop doing what you're doing. You just may need to do things differently and look at it differently. I was talking to Renee before we started, and she said, I want to run into my 80s. So there's a way to do that, but it's not going to look like you did when you were 20. So along with those decreased muscle mass and bone mass, we lose joint mobility. Our joints don't move as well as they need to. They don't move as far. So it's like flexibility, a flexibility of joint as opposed to soft tissue. You lose both. And I mentioned about tendons, you lose tendon elasticity. So that's why you can't jump like you did before. And as a result of these loss of muscle mass, bone mass, and joint mobility and joint degeneration, you have balance issues, you have loss of speed, loss of reflexes, loss of strength, loss of power. It does not mean you have to stop what you're doing. It may mean you have to, like I have big toe arthritis, and it's not a good idea for me to run. That's a different story. However, if you don't have too bad a degeneration, you just need to look at it differently. So here's our friend Carney. He's 75. He just ran a triathlon just a month ago and he did great. So he's still doing it. And he's had his share of injuries. I've worked him through. He had knee arthroscopic surgery, so it took him a year or two to be able to get back to running again. So what's the biggest mistake you can make as a runner? You ignore it. There are so much you can do when you have pain and an injury. Resting may be the first, maybe something you need to do, particularly obviously if you have a fracture, you do need to rest it. But resting doesn't change why you got injured in the first place. It doesn't change the mechanics of why you got injured in the first place. It will heal, allow the tissues to heal. But if you like, oh, I feel better, and you go out and run and you get injured again, it's because resting didn't take care of the problem. So you have three choices. You can ignore it, like we just said. You can alter it with medications, injections, and surgery, and there is a place for this. But we would love for you to handle it and figure out, why did you get injured in the first place? And there may be a place where you need to do medication along with it. You might need an injection to go along with that. And if ultimately you need a surgery, you will get in better condition for the surgery. But let's figure out why you got injured in the first place so you can continue to do what you love to do. So, how do you know physical therapy will help? Is it reproducible? Reproducible means if I don't run, I don't have hip pain. I only have hip pain when I walk. But when I sit down, I'm okay. My back only hurts when I bend over, but otherwise I'm okay. If that you come into my clinic and I poke around somewhere, oh, that hurts, but otherwise it doesn't hurt, that's reproducible. So that's usually a musculoskeletal issue, and physical therapy will help. So how do we know if it's reducible or not reproducible? I don't know. About 10 years ago, I woke up and I went out for my run and my left low back was hurting. And I'm one of those lucky people. I don't typically have back pain. I'm like, why do I have this? This is weird. But it didn't get worse and it didn't get better while I was running. So I finished my run. The next day, the pain was getting a little worse, a little stronger. By day 3, it was radiating around to my abdomen. I couldn't find a comfortable position. Nothing seemed to reproduce it. By day 4, I couldn't even sleep because it was just there all the time. I couldn't find a comfortable position to sleep in, nothing. I went to the emergency. So I knew it's not reproducible. I went to the emergency room after CAT scans and whatnot. I don't know. Sent me home. A week later, I discovered I had shingles. So I had pain before the rash showed up. And that is not something that physical therapy can help. So that is not reproducible and not reducible. So what do we do in physical therapy? And what do we do differently here at the Manual Touch? We look at your whole body because everything is connected. Here's our dancing skeletons to remind you that the shin bone is connected to the knee bone, connected to the hip bone. And so if you got a problem in your back, or your pain is in your back, let's say, you might have a hip weakness, you might have something going on in your feet, you might have something up above. So we need to look at all those pieces. So when you come in for your evaluation, we want to hear your whole history. We want to hear every surgery you had, every accident you have. You could have fallen off your bike when you were 8 years old. You could have fallen down the stairs at 10. Those pieces play into how your body developed to who you are as an adult and how you've learned your body has compensated. So those are very important pieces. Those are a piece of your puzzle. And then we look at assess your gait, your walking, your strength, your mobility, and we poke around to put all those pieces together to figure out where is the primary piece coming from. I'm trying to think of a running one right now. Oh, Gail, I talked about, she had all these foot issues, but her real issue was her core. She had that diastasis, it wasn't holding together, so she was getting too much stress down in her foot. After we evaluate you, and if you're a runner, we'll eventually videotape you running. Well, and A, if you still can run, even though you have pain, and B, the first few visits, we're really focusing on A, the evaluation, and B, getting you going on some movement exercise, get rid of, kind of decrease that pain before we take a look at the running, because we may or may not be ready to do running right away. So we do some hands-on work. We might do some more traditional kinds of hands-on therapy where we mobilize your joints to make sure all the joints are doing what they're supposed to do. So hopefully you can see my hand. So your finger, I can move my finger like this, but it also has joint play in all different directions. So that's what we're making sure, that you have joint play in every joint where it needs to be for you to run and move. Soft tissue wise, we might do some deep tissue work to kind of ease out some of that, and particularly scar tissue. And so that might be a little bit more aggressive, but we might do more of a non-traditional soft tissue work where it works with your body and not against your body and forcing it to move. And that's where we differentiate ourselves in working with people, not necessarily forcing the body to do what it doesn't want to do. So we pick and choose depending on what you need. We give you exercises. Runners need balance, stability, mobility, range of motion in all the joints, power, strengthening, and most importantly, you need neuromuscular re-education to get everything working together. So we re-educate your body so it's doing what it's supposed to do. And then we give you tons of education on how to sit and how to stand and how to walk and how to sit down and how to sleep and how to move from all those different positions, because nobody ever teaches you that. And we've all figured out how to just make it work. And we talked about running analysis is important because you just develop different compensations. All right. So that's the evaluation, that's physical therapy. So why do runners get injured? I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's a statistic that says of every sport out there, runners get injured the most because it's repetitive motion and it's almost always due to overuse. It's the too much syndrome, too much intensity, too much speed, too soon. So those are the pieces we need to figure out. In physical therapy, we look at, is there a biomechanical issue, muscle imbalance, soft tissue, joint restrictions, etc. Is there something going on in your form? And we look at your shoes. Do you have the right shoes for you? Are you changing your shoes as often as you need to? Usually the go-to is somewhere between 300 to 500 miles per shoes. Because of my foot mechanics, which they're a problem, I always needed new shoes every 300 to 350 miles. And even now that I'm not running, I'm changing my shoes every 4 to 5 months. And I need orthotics because I have some specific biomechanical issues in my feet in addition to the big toe issue. So if you come in here and I don't think the shoes are the right ones for you, I'll send you to a running specific store. Well, really evaluate you.
Denise, we're at 10 minutes prior to 1.
Oh, okay. Real quick, I wanted to tell you about Gwen. She was 28 when she came in, and she had this chronic hamstring issue, and she really wanted to qualify for Boston. And she had a marathon scheduled maybe 3 months from when I saw her. And she was a collegiate runner, so she knew how to run. She had done a marathon before. We didn't need to get over the mental hurdle of that. So I suggested to her when I saw her, in addition to the manual therapy she needed and exercises, I said, I don't want you to do any speed work out running. I want you to do all your speed work on your cross training of choice. Hers was a spin bike because she knew she could run fast. She knew she could do a marathon, but she could still do her easy runs without a problem. So that's what she did. She did all of her speed work on the spin bike. She did all of her runs easy. She made it to her marathon. She had no hamstring pain, and she qualified for Boston. When to stop running if you're in constant pain, if you have pain with running from the get-go, you have running when you're sleeping. Excuse me, if you have pain while sleeping, you need to stop. Sometimes, and then when you can't run, you cross train, you come in for PT, and maybe this is a chance for you to enjoy life a little bit. I'm injured, can I still run? I ran through some of my injuries because the pain wouldn't persist after I ran, and it was less than 5 out of 10. Something that we do here to rehab you is we use this OOV, which is this wonderful tool that doesn't allow you to compensate. It uses your core your body three-dimensionally, and your core is activated subconsciously. You can lay on your back, put it behind your back, you can stand on it. There's my son, there's an older person. There's another device where we do sitting that activates your core as well. And then I have some ebooks for you in the running portal. Okay. So I whipped through towards the end there, but I wanted to leave some time for questions. And you will get that PowerPoint presentation, but if you really want some more information, please put your first and last name and email in the chat box, or go to my website and sign up for my newsletter. I provide a lot of helpful tips and information on there as well. Any questions? Something I often always get is an insurance question. I am a Blue Cross and Medicare provider, but we bill all insurance. And if you are, we will check your insurance benefits for physical therapy when you give us a call.
I have a question
Yes.
because I've thought about doing yoga or Pilates in support of running, and I just wonder if one of those is better than the other, or if it would be good to look at something completely different from those two.
Both of those are fine. Pilates is a very core-based type of training, so you really get that core working. Yoga tends to work a little bit more on flexibility, but really, and they'll do a lot more balance work.
Oh, good.
So both of
Okay.
those work, but you really need balance exercises, core exercises, strengthening. Weight
Okay.
training is really important for runners as well. So I don't know what else you're doing, but both of those are wonderful pieces to add to your program.
Cool. Yeah, I do body weight exercises. So I'll do squats and lunges,
Perfect.
push-ups. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. And you want to do core exercises in the position of your sport of choice.
Oh,
So planks are great. And I think planks are great. Sit-ups are stupid, and curl-ups. I don't think anybody should be doing those. But you need to do core work in standing. So I do a lot of core things in standing because that's where it needs to be working.
that's good information. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Thank you all for having me. What am I doing next month? Something about foot pain, I think, right?
Let me look really quickly. I'm pulling up the August one. It will be, it's healing heel pain.
Yeah.
Yes, that will be August 27th.
Yeah. So there's a lot that can go on in your feet. So we're going to really talk about the more common stuff like plantar fasciitis, that kind of thing. All right. Thank you for having me.